Good morning. Thank you for being here today. It is an honor to have with us today American author and philosopher Robert Lee Fulghum, who has alternatively been described as an uncommon thinker or as a mirror of the everyman. Born in 1937 in Texas, Robert worked as a cowboy, a computer salesman, bartender, prison counselor, teacher, and then as a Unitarian minister for 22 years before becoming a writer. He has written 8 books of nonfiction, most notably Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten, which was on the New York Times bestseller list for 96 weeks, and several novels, most recently 9 Dragons and a Sheep. In all, more than 17 million copies of his books are in print in 31 different languages, the kind of figures most authors can only dream about. Robert, much like Yara Zimmerman, who, by the way, might have been his great-grandfather, is a true Renaissance man. Besides being an accomplished author, he is a painter, sculptor, dancer, and musician. Robert is famous not only for finding wonder in the ordinary, but for convincing others that all this bumbling means something. He firmly believes that everyone in this audience today has amazing stories to tell, and he has made an illustrious career of recording the stories he hears and finding meaning in them. Please join me in welcoming Robert Fulghum to the podium.
Is this on? Ah, yes, it is. Omlibam say, mimlibim cheski. But you speak English, I know. When I first came to this country in 1990, no one spoke English. Now, anyone under the age of 30, if I say, I'm sorry I don't speak Czech, they say, no problem, I speak English. It's a very different place to be. This is. This could be very exciting. People ask me, why do I come to the Czech Republic? I don't know. But an old lady at a book signing explained to me. She believes in reincarnation. And she said, you, Fulghum, were in a previous life Czech. And in the next life, you will be Czech. Meanwhile, you must just wait until you feel like being more and more Czech, and you will be Czech. So I'm waiting, but I told her something that he mentioned, that a long time ago, Yara Zimmerman went to the United States, and he had a love affair with my grandmother. And so I am the grandchild of Yara Zimmerman. And you can't be any more Czech than that. When I tell my American friends about this, they say, the Czechs must be crazy. And I say, yes, it's true, they are. And that's why I like to come. I look for stories when I come to the Czech Republic. And sometimes the stories come to me. And I like the mentality of even the youngest Czech. For example, I am going to train from Prague to Olomouc. And the group of students are with their teacher waiting for a trip. And a little girl comes up to me and she says, I have seen your picture in the paper. And then she said, I have seen your picture in the metro. What do you do? And I thought, well, let's have some fun. I said to her, don't tell anybody, but I am a professional bank robber. And she said, and this is very Czech, "Wonderful, I have never met a bank robber before." She says, "Where are you going?" she said. To Olomouc. "Why are you going to Olomouc?" "To rob a bank." "Why are you going to rob a bank?" "That's where the money is." "Oh," she said, "I'll be right back." So she went over and talked to her teacher and said, he did blah, 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 blah. And the teacher recognized me. And she said, go. So the little girl came. She said, "Are you really going to Olomouc to rob a bank?" And I said, "Yes." She says, "Can I go?" I said, "Can you drive a car?" "No, I can't drive a car, but I can run very fast," she said. I said, no, I need someone who can drive a car. That's not the end of the story. The next day, I'm walking down the street in Olomouc, and a young woman, about your age, came running after me. Mr. Fulghum, wait." "What?" She said, "I was there last night when you talked the story about the little girl." "Yes." "I have a car." That's not the end of the story. This keeps going thanks to the Czech sense of humor. The next night, I am in a town, and there was an old lady came up to me at the end of the evening and said to me, "If you want to rob a bank in Kutná Hora, I have a gun and a car. Here is my name and my cell phone number." That's not the end of the story. The next night, I am in another town, Czech Culture, and a man came up to me, a very distinguished-looking man, and he said, "If you want to rob a bank in Czech Culture, you don't need a gun, you don't need a car, you need me." I said, "Who are you?" He says, "I am the manager of the bank, and I have keys." This kept going. Night after night, somebody had a new idea. Finally, I went back to the United States, and I live in Moab, Utah, which is a place that's famous for mountain biking. And I am sitting on my front porch, and here comes two bicycle riders, a boy and a girl, young people. They have come to ride in mountains. And they said to me, "Are you Mr. Fulghum?" "Yes." "Do you have a car?" "Why?" "We have come to rob banks." "Who are you?" "We are Czechs from Olomouc." That's not the end of the story. When I was coming into the country a week ago, at the where you have to give your passport, the officer said to me, "Well, Mr. Fulghum, why have you come to the Czech Republic?" And I thought, should I tell him? Yeah, I have come to rob banks. I don't think so. But last night I was in Olomouc, and I told a story, and I said, all I know is that Olomouc is full of bank robbers, and next time I come, we will go to work on the banks. So watch the newspaper, you never know. There are 2 points to this story. One is the fun of laughter that goes with foolishness. But this is part of what I find in the Czech mentality, of a sense of humor that is unique. How can I not love a country whose major hero doesn't exist? I wish some of our American heroes didn't exist either. Well, never mind. So I know that you have come to see me, and I am really honored that you would take your time to come and sit and see me. But it's important for you to know that I have come to see you. I want to see your face. I want to see how you dress, how you look, how you laugh, so that when I write, right now I'm writing only for a Czech audience, a long way from here, and a long time from now, I'm writing and thinking, who is this for? And I can get out my camera and look and say, oh, those students from Zlín, they are real. and I am writing for them. So I have come to make sure that you are real. And I look at your faces and I say, you are really very real. Thank you for coming. Now, thank you. I don't have a prepared speech, for which you're probably grateful. And I would like to know, I can tell you why I came to see you. I would like some idea of what you would like me to say and do. Not question, but why don't you talk about panda bears, or why don't you talk about gummy bears, or I will talk about anything that interests you. You came with something in your mind. What would you like for me to talk about? I can tell someone, anybody. Don't be Czech. Don't be shy. Someone. What would you like for me to talk about? Come. Oh, yes. What made me start writing? When I was a little boy, I lived all alone on a ranch. I had no brothers, no sisters, no one to play with. And so I created imaginary friends. How many of you have had imaginary friends when you were little? Yeah, you know what I mean. There were people who became very real, and you can talk to them, and you could tell stories about them, and so I had imaginary friends. Sometimes now that I am in my 80s, I think, I wonder where those people are now. What do they look like? What is their life story? I don't know. But I started telling stories to those imaginary friends. So when I went to kindergarten, the first thing the teacher asks you is to tell a story, show and tell. So I had lots of stories, and the people in my class thought I had lots of friends where I lived. So there was this whole world that started going. And from that age, I knew the power of storytellers. If I start with, once upon a time, there was, people want to know. And everybody has stories. And if they don't want to know my stories, I say to them, tell me a story. Everybody has stories. And if they say, I don't have a story, well, if you're a father or a mother, tell me the story that you tell your children when you go to bed at night. And then, is that true, or did you make it all up? And for me, that's the story of my life. I'm a storyteller all my life. When I was a minister in a church, a teacher in a high school, a writer, I tell stories. Some of you may know that Stephen King is a friend of mine, and we play in a band together, rock and roll, the Rock Bottom Remainders. And I asked him once, why did he become a writer? And he said, I have been telling myself stories as long as I can remember. And now that's what I've done with my life. It's that simple. That's what we do. So that's a long answer to your question, but I cannot remember when I was not a storyteller, which is what I still do. Someone else? Come on, help me out. What is my favorite book? The next book that I am going to write. And I mean by that, that's the most exciting thing about being a writer, is knowing that somewhere in here, the words, the ideas will come and out there. So I'm serious. My next book is my most favorite book because it's exciting. I don't know. Someone else, come.
When you write a book, is it like some kind of ritual before you start writing? Can it be doing something or something?
He's asking if there is a ritual to writing. No, I am writing all the time. When I'm asleep, when I'm awake. Right now, I am looking at you drinking. I think, oh, I can use that image of a young man drinking. Your brain is always working. And sometimes I am using a pencil with an idea. Sometimes I'm just walking around in the world experiencing it, but all the time in the back room of my head, the writing is going on. It's like building a house. You don't just suddenly imagine a house. You have to have an idea, and then you have to have a place, and then you have to dig a hole, and then you have to, and you don't start painting it to begin with. You have to go through all these steps, and all these steps are going on in my head. So I'm never not writing. It's always writing. Right now, I am writing. I am looking at you and remembering your face. And someday you will look at a book and say, oh, that's me. Someone else? Yeah? Wait, I've got one more. Someone? Yes. Pardon? Why don't I move to the Czech Republic? Well, I have to have permission, and that's it. You have to fill out all the forms, and I can be here 90 days at a time, which is enough for the Czechs and enough for me. But I think of myself as a citizen of the world. And so I live sometimes in Greece. I have a house in Crete, in the island of Crete. And I live sometimes in Prague, and sometimes in Utah, and sometimes in Japan. And so I live in the world, not just in the Czech Republic. And I noticed wherever I go, there are lots of young Czechs traveling in the world. You know, I'm glad that Czechs want to think of themselves as citizens of the world. It's a good thing. We are one small world. Someone else? Yes?
You spoke about last life and future life. Do you believe on it?
I spoke about the last life and future life. Do I believe? I don't know. I'll tell you something that's an example. I believe in the fact that there may be parallel universes, but I will never know for sure because they are separate. But you know what you use for bubble wrap when you're wrapping a package and you have the bubbles? That's the way I think the universe must have as many other universes. So in that sense, I believe in many lives, not just, but I can't prove it. I will never know. I hope so. I hope this is not all there is. I don't know. That's the wonderful thing is we don't know, but it's maybe. It's always maybe. Yeah. Someone else? Come? Yes.
You visit Czech Republic many years ago, and when you come first time, you like Czech gastronomy and Czech traditional drinks, for example, predominantly wine, beer.
Did I like the Czech culture when I came? When I grew up in Texas, there were very close to my family's ranch 3 small towns that were all Czech. In the late 1800s, the whole towns of Czechs came to the United States. Everybody came, the mayor, the teachers, the children, the old people, everybody, the whole town came. And there was a town close to where I lived. And in that town, every Saturday, my father and I would go, and we would eat Czech sausage, and we would eat Czech bread, and we would drink Czech beer, and we would eat kolaches, and then in the evening we would dance polka. I learned to dance polka. I thought this was Texas. I didn't know that this was Czechia. And so when I came the first time, I went to an evening of folk dancing, and everybody was dancing Texas polka. And so I danced. And I thought, I wonder how they learned to dance like Texas. But in fact, it was part of my life growing up. And I didn't understand it at the time. But when I got here, I felt at home because it was familiar. And I feel at home because of what's inside of the Czech mentality. This is a very small country, but it has a large heart. And it has been through many, many trials and troubles, but somehow something in the Czechs always rise up. And you have that in you, from your parents and grandparents and all the rest. And I respect that. I like being in a country that is strong. I look at old people who are 90 on the street, and I think of what they have lived through and yet they are still out there on the street. I'll tell you a story about an old lady that has the essence of being an old Czech. I learned that on the tram, that if there's an old person and you're sitting down, you must get up and offer the old person a seat. So I got on the tram, and there's an old lady sitting here, really old, white hair, all in black, all sort of folded into herself, and I'm riding along, and she looks at me, and she gets up and offers me her chair. I say, no, you sit. No, prosim, you sit. No, prosim, you sit. I don't want to sit. You please sit down. And I said, finally she says, sit down! So I sat down, and the man said, standing next to me, said, you better do what she says. So I thought, well, okay, then I will sit down, and then I will put her on my knees so she can sit down. And, you know, when you get old, this part of you shifts down, and so I grabbed her around the waist, and she goes, and the man said to her, he is not Czech. He doesn't understand. He is an American. And she looked at me, an American? Oh. So she sat down in my lap. I think it's very Czech. There are rules, and there's a way things should be, but there's an open-mindedness of, oh, this is not the usual situation. I like that story very, very much. The other rule I learned on the Czech tram is that if someone is pregnant, then you must get up and give the pregnant person the seat. So I'm sitting on the tram, and a young lady gets on, and she looked very tired. And she said to me, may I sit down? I am pregnant. Oh, sure, I get up, sit down. It's not funny. And she sat down, and we're riding along, and I'm looking at her, and I'm thinking, she doesn't look very pregnant to me. So I said to her, excuse me, but how long have you been pregnant? She said, about an hour. And I'm exhausted. So I learned something about being Czech, and something about how to act on the tram, and something about a sense of humor. There was another time a lady, I was signing books at Pilsner Equel, at the big brewery in Pilsen. And a lady came to have her book signed, and she was really pregnant, like maybe 4 or 5 kids, I don't know, huge. And she rested her belly on the table. Boom. And I said, when is your baby due? She says, I don't know. I said, you do understand that you are pregnant? She said, oh, so that's what it is. Very Czech humor, I think. I could tell stories all day, but enough. Someone else would like me to talk about something? This? Well, you know, I think that the shawl is beautiful. And I like feeling beautiful. And I'm not really very beautiful, so if I wear the shawl, people look at the shawl, not at me. No, I have a number of shawls. I think, why should women only have shawls? I mean, why not men? So it's kind of what I wear and like. And this shawl, every time I have been on tour in the Czech Republic, I wear the same shawl. So it is 2 sides, and it is from the Metropolitan Museum in New York City. Do you like it? Yeah. Yeah. Yes, yes, no, it's very, very nice. Would you like to buy it? Someone else. Come on, don't be shy. Come on. My best American stories. Okay. I will tell you a story that has happened just this spring. As you know, I was for many years a pastor of a church. And in that, I conducted 1,000 weddings. And after a while, I got tired of weddings. Weddings are very stressful for everybody. And I got to the point that I either laughed or cried for every wedding. And so I stopped performing weddings. I don't do that anymore. So a man called me. And he said, I have read everything you have written about weddings and marriage, and I would like for you to marry my bride and me. I said, no. Yes, please. We will come to you. We will not stay long. We won't take much of your time. And I will do anything you want if you will do this. I said, anything? And he said, yes. I said, well, I have some ideas. But I said, okay, come. Now, think about this. In your mind at the moment, you are imagining this couple. You are thinking maybe they are young, or they are, a standard young couple wants to get married. Oh, no. The car comes, the doors open, and the bride is 75 years old, and the groom is 75 years old, and his wife has died, and her husband has died, and they face the future alone. And so they decided they would not sit home and watch television, they would get out in the world, and they joined a choir, a big choir, and the choir was going to perform the Hallelujah chorus from the Messiah for Christmas. He was a tenor, she was an alto, so they stood side by side, and slowly but surely they moved a little closer, and one night he invited her out for coffee, and the next night they stood a little closer, and slowly but surely, until the night of the performance of the Hallelujah chorus for the Messiah, they stood close enough to touch, and he held her hand. They went out for champagne after that, and then he walked her home one night, and she said, I am not going home alone, I am going home with you. And so they have come to be married. He has brought the suit he wore the night of the Hallelujah chorus, beautiful suit, tuxedo, white tie. She is wearing the dress that she wore the night of the performance, long black velvet dress. And they have her daughter and his son to be the witnesses, and a little girl, the granddaughter. The granddaughter thought this was all about her. She has a white dress with rhinestones all over it. She has flowers in her hair and a crown with rhinestones. She has lipstick, earrings, fingernail polish, toenail polish. She has come to be married. And she has a little purse, a little tiny purse, and in the purse is the ring. So we get ready to do the ceremony, and I am serious, and the bride and groom are serious, and the little girl pulls on my and says, I have to go. So where do you have to go? Toilet. When? Now. Can you wait? No. And boom, she wet her pants, she pooped in her pants all over the floor, and then she threw up. And the smell of all this. I am crazy. And so the mother took the little girl to the bathroom where you could hear, "Rah!" No problem. The wedding was not ruined because the groom had bought champagne, lots of champagne. So he opened the champagne and poured the champagne and turned on the Hallelujah chorus. So the Hallelujah chorus is going and we are drinking, I am drinking too, we're drinking champagne. Nobody's worried about the little girl. So after a while, the little girl, I took a big black garbage bag into the bathroom, and all the dirty clothes, everything from the mother and the child went into the garbage bag, and the garbage bag was taken out onto the porch. So now we are ready to go again. And the little girl said to me, "I want to go." I said, "You've already gone." She said, "I want to go home." "Why?" "I don't want to be married today." I said, No, we have to do this. I need the ring. Where is the ring? The mother thought, the ring is in the black bag out on the porch. So the mother had to go out and go through the bag looking for the ring and bring it in and wash it off and come back. Now, you might think that the wedding was ruined, spoiled by now. It was terrible. No. The bride and groom loved each other very much, and they were determined, no matter what, to be happy. And so we drank some more champagne, and we turned up the volume on the Hallelujah chorus, and by then the bride and groom were moving back and forth like this, and I am going back and forth like this. It's like a dance. The only person who's unhappy is the little girl, because her wedding day has been ruined. And she doesn't know that for the rest of her life, every time the family gets together, they will say, "Remember what you did at your grandmother's wedding," and she will never be allowed to forget. The point of the story is that nothing could ruin this wedding because the bride and groom wanted to rejoice. And the word that they rejoiced around is hallelujah, which means rejoice. So that's an American story. It's a universal story, I bet. That I'm sure if you are noticed, there are little girls in the Czech Republic who are wedding princesses. Maybe one of you has been one, and you know what it feels like to think it's all about you. And only after you grow up do you realize it's about love and about joy. So that's an American story. Someone else? Come on. How are we doing for time? Fine, okay. He's going to say stop when I need to stop. Someone from way up there? Anybody have a...
You told us about rock and roll.
About rock and roll?
Yeah. I would like to hear some stories.
Stories about rock and roll. Wow. First, you have to understand that my oldest son grew up playing the guitar and playing rock music. It was his world, not mine. And so when I began writing at age 50, some people who were also writers who played music decided we should put together a band. And in the band we would do this to raise money for a good cause, for literacy, to help people who did not read or speak, to learn to read and write English. So there was Stephen King and me, and Ridley Pearson, another writer, Amy Tan, a whole bunch of really famous musicians. And none of us played very well. It was more like a freak show than it was a musician thing, but it was for a good cause. So on the first night at Anaheim, California, at the Cowboy Boogie Club, we performed. And a lot of the people who worked for Random House had gone to a lingerie store and they brought bras and panties and underwear. And so while we were singing, they were throwing bras and panties and underwear on us. So I have a picture of myself with a bra hanging off of my guitar. And this was on television. And my son in Seattle saw this, and he was so ashamed that his father would do something like this in public that he never could come and watch to see us do it. But we did this for several years, raised a lot of money, had a lot of fun. I mean, 50's not old for a rocker. You know, how old is Mick Jagger now? He's in his 70s, and he's still doing it. You know, why not? But it stopped because Stephen King was hit by a truck, and all the bones in this side of his body were broken. He was smashed. So he had to have lots of steel pins, and it caused him great pain. He was in the hospital for a year, and then they had to take the pins out, more pain, and so he can't really play guitar anymore. But we had a great memory, and my oldest son is still embarrassed to say my father is a rocker. You know, it's hard for him to say. But why not? Why not? If life gives you an opportunity, you should take it. You don't have to be good at it. I was invited to come at age 70 to a tango dance, and I went, and I thought, oh, this is wonderful. And so at age 70, I began to dance tango. And I went to Buenos Aires, and I went to school, and I'm not a good tango dancer, but I love to tango dance, and why not? That's my attitude toward a lot of things that life says, what about this? And my response is, well, why not? Let's try that. It's not illegal, it's not immoral to try something you've never tried before. And I think the worst excuse is to say, I don't do that. I can't do that. I'll give you an example that involves you. How many of you are singers? Like 5 hands went up, people who sing. You're a human being, and you don't put your hand up and say you're a singer? Listen to me when I'm going to sing to you, and when I sing, and you know what I'm doing, help me by doing this. Listen. La 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 la. Help me. La 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 la. Breathe. La 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 la. You lied to me. You all sang. Ode to Joy, Beethoven's Ninth. You know that Beethoven was Jonas Zimmermann's uncle, and so it's Czech music, and it has words. Listen again, and you can sing the words with me. The word is hallelujah, which is rejoice. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Help me. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Breathe. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. See, you all sing. It's amazing to me how many people who are healthy, young adults, and you say, do you dance? No, I don't want to dance. No, I can't dance. Or do you sing? No, I don't sing. No. This is crazy. You are human, you are alive, you are young, you have a bright imagination, and you have great music inside this meat. There's nothing but meat in here. And in there is Beethoven's Ninth. and a lot of other wonderful things. Don't give up on any part of your humanity. Singers sing, not just in the shower. And dancers have to learn to dance. You learn to drive a car, it's easier to learn to dance. So, okay, how are we doing for time? Okay.
Just fine. We have 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Oh, we got lots of time. So now, since we can sing, maybe we should dance, you think? What else should I talk about? Come on, give me something. Yes, way in the back.
At the beginning, you mentioned gummy bears. Would you like to share some of your favorite food or sweets?
My favorite foods are sweet. Well, I am ashamed to say that I am crazy about sweets. You can see. This is gummy bears. In fact, I have made the world's largest gummy bear. If you take your bathtub at home and you fill it with hot water and you put in 20 packages of Jell-O and you wait overnight, then you can cut out a gummy bear this big. No one will eat it, but it is a big gummy bear. The other thing, one of the reasons I come to the Czech Republic is because I love Kentucky Fried Chicken. And my town in the United States, there is no Kentucky Fried Chicken. In the Czech Republic, there's Kentucky Fried Chicken everywhere. On the freeway, 10 miles to Kentucky Fried Chicken, 15 kilometers to Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC everywhere. So I come and eat Kentucky Fried Chicken. Sometimes I have actually eaten a vegetable once, but not often. And people say, well, what kind of diet is that? I said, well, I'm a vegetarian. I smoke cigars, those are vegetable. And I eat chocolate, that's from a plant. And I drink wine, that's from a plant. And I do eat beef, but the beef eats vegetables, so I get my vegetables that way. I am very lucky to be in my 80s and still alive and still in good health. And it's because of the gummy bear diet. So, someone else? I like the question. Yes?
What was your favorite book when you were a kid? What was your favorite book when you were a kid?
What was my favorite book when I was a little kid? Well, when I was 6 years old, I wrote my first book. It was a story about an insect. And the insect's name was Fred. And that was my favorite first book, was the story that I wrote about Fred. Now, if you came to my house, you would find a very strange thing. I have a companion. The companion is an orangutan that is this tall, like this, a big, hairy, red orangutan, in a pink dress with shoes. And her name is Louise. And Louise is my tango dancing partner. I was on to make an exhibition when I was in Seattle dancing tango, and that afternoon, my partner broke her ankle. So what to do? So I'm walking down the street, and here's a toy shop. And in the toy shop is this orangutan, Louise, in the pink dress. And I thought, I bet she could dance really well because she doesn't touch the floor, so she can follow. So I thought, well, why not do something crazy? So I bought Louise, took her to the evening, and said to people, there will be an exhibition of tango dancing, and with Louise, my companion. So we got up and danced. Well, you can throw her in the air and catch her and throw her between your legs, and by one leg you can do like, you can't do this with a real woman. And she was sensational. And after the performance, there's social dancing, and everybody wanted to dance with Louise. And so I would look up and say, where is Louise? Oh, she's dancing over there, and she's dancing there, and every dance with Louise. After that, people would say to me, if I'm coming to the dance, bring Louise, or don't come. And one night I got home and I didn't have her. And I called and I said, has anybody seen Louise? He said, yes, she went home with the bartender. She has her own life. And I know that sounds silly for a full-grown, older man to have a companion that is a stuffed animal. But when I go shopping in the grocery store, I take her and put her in the baby seat. Everybody in town knows her now. And think about it. When you go to a grocery store, you are thinking, I want this, and I want this, and I want that, and that. You're not paying attention to people. But if you're going down the aisle and you see a man with a stuffed orangutan, you may stop and talk to him. And especially foreigners will say, oh, tell me about you. So I meet people because of Louise, and they laugh and smile, and it adds some sense of joy to the world. What's wrong with that? And so I play the fool, and people smile and laugh. That's not a bad thing to bring into the world. So now I take Louise very seriously. And she's very quiet. She doesn't mind me talking about football. She doesn't eat much. She sleeps very quietly, doesn't snore, no. So she's a good companion. Someone else. What else shall we talk about? That's Louise. Yes?
Do you have any kind of stories about when you were like a kid and you went trick-or-treating? Any stories about that?
He is asking me if I have any stories about when I was young and went trick-or-treating. And you don't know too much about this. In the United States, we celebrate Halloween, which is the last day of October. And it's our custom to go out and with bags, knock on people's doors in costume, and ask for candy. And we had let little kids do this. I'm still a little kid, and so I still go. I have a big rabbit suit. I dress as a big white rabbit and take Louise with me, and we take a bag, and we get lots of candy, and it's free. So I'm still going, why not? And when people come to the door and say, what? How? What? Candy, please. Thank you. I think it's terribly important to be young as long as you can. There's nothing wrong with, if you were a good child, then be a good child until the end. It's a layer of who we are, not just, there's a difference between being childish and keeping the child in you alive. I am traveling with an actor and an actress, and her little girl is 1.5 years. And we bonded immediately, and she just met me today, and we now are friends because she and I look at the world the same way. It's, wow, look at this. And I don't want to lose that. I still want to walk into a room like this and say, wow, look at this. Look at all these people with all the stories that they have. And isn't that amazing to be in a room full of strangers, but now we are friends. Someone else? Yes?
What would you like to say to your 20-year-old self?
What would I say to my 20-year-old self? I remember being 19 and looking in the mirror and thinking, what will become of me? I couldn't imagine ever being 30. My God, that's old. 30 is close to death. A year later, when I was 20, I got married and had a child right away. So now it's no question about what will become of me. I have to take care of the marriage and the child. And so all of a sudden, life says, here's the answer. Baby, wife, full catastrophe. And so for a long time, I didn't think. And then I looked up one day and I thought, my God, I'm going to be 30. And then in a very short time, my God, I'm going to be 40. And then 50. And life has this momentum. And you try to stop and think, but it catches you up. You get a job, you have la, 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 la. So only Well, last week, a little girl in Prague who speaks English said to me, I'm 83, she said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I thought, that's the best question anybody's asked me. I don't know. I'm still not sure what I will be when I grow up, but someday I will know. Thank you for the question. Somebody else? Yes?
I would like to ask you about your drawing and painting. Do you still draw pictures?
She's asking about my art. I remember when I went to school, kindergarten, and I had always wanted a full box of Crayolas. There are 64 colors, and there's a sharpener. And I had always wanted one of those. And the teacher said, "Here, this is yours. 64 colors, sharpener, your Crayolas." And I started drawing with those and have never looked back. I always got more Crayolas and more painting. I've never done it to make a living. I do art to make living worthwhile. And I do sculpture and painting. I taught. And when I taught art, when students would come to the room, there would be nothing in the room except big pads of paper and 64 crayons, a box with their name. These are 18-year-old. And I would say, get on the floor and draw me your house and draw me your family. And they never said no. They would get on the floor, and you know what the house looks like. It has a triangle on the top, and then there's a square in the bottom, and then there's curtains, and there's birds flying in the air, and smoke coming out the chimney, and hey, it doesn't look like any house you ever lived in. It's a house in your imagination. And something I noticed that little kids do, they put doorknobs on. Why does the house have doorknobs? Because little kids see doorknobs and adults don't. You know, we reach down and turn the door, but the little kid looks and sees the doorknob. And that's where I began. And I would say to the students, remember when you were in kindergarten and the teacher said, draw? She never said, this is right, this is wrong. And you never said, I can't draw. But you did, like you sang. And it's the same thing. So art is part of being human, I think. I never would call myself an artist. I'm part of being human. But I have something I want to do when I grow up. I would like to make a book, to start with making the paper and make the ink and learn to make the book, bind it together, and then make a pen and write the book with my ink, my pen, my paper, and there would just be one. And then what would I do with it? Well, I don't know. It's for sale if you would like to buy it. There's always, and then what happened? There's always so what, you have a book, what would you do? When my second son was very young, I would try to tell him stories at night when he would go to bed. And no matter what I told him, he would always take a deep breath and say, and then what happened? So I tried to come up with a story that he could not ask that. So I said one night, a comet came and hit the earth and blew the whole earth to pieces, millions of pieces. A long pause. And then he said, what became of the pieces? And that's what I'm still thinking. Well, you do that, then what comes next? I don't know. We are running out of time. Give me one more. One more. Well, I will tell you a story. And it has... I have been living for about half of the year in Greece on the island of Crete. And I went there one summer 30 years ago, and at the end of a week of lectures and things about Greek art and everything, There was a very famous man, and Alexandros Papaderos. And he asked at the end of his program, what you've been asked, are there any questions? And everybody thinks, well, no, let's go. But I put my hand up and I said, what is the meaning of life? Now, and everybody smiled and laughed. Oh, how stupid can you get? But suppose somebody knows and you didn't ask. And he seemed to know a lot, so I said, what is the meaning of life? He said, I will tell you about the meaning of my life. When I was a small boy, the Nazis took over Crete, and we had to hide in caves in the mountains. We had no food, no toys. Life was awful. And one day, a German officer was riding in a motorcycle and was shot, and the motorcycle crashed, and we went down to see, and on the motorcycle there was a mirror, and it was a mirror like this one. And he said, I picked up the mirror, and I took it home, and it was the only toy I had. And I found that I could stand outside the cave, and I could catch the light from the sun and shine it into the dark places where without me, light would never go. He said, now I have learned that this is the story of my life. I am not the source of the light. I'm not the source of wisdom, of knowledge, of good ideas, but I know where they are. And I know by my life I can catch that light and shine it in dark places where without me it would never go. That's his stories, but it's also my story. If you say, Fulghum, what do you do with your life? I am a mirror, and I go around and say to people like you, look at yourself. You are singers, dancers, thinkers, the heirs to a fabulous history of a small country with a great heart. And you have a job to do, which is to reflect that light in dark places where without you, it would never, ever go. Okay?